Rome burns for the second time in 50 years. The emperors of the West have become powerless puppets while ambitious generals play politics and war. Foreign peoples are occupying the former imperial provinces. Rome is finished. There is a man who does not believe in this. He will become the emperor of Rome. He will launch a last, valiant effort to save the Western Roman Empire. His name is Majorian. Majorian was probably born around 420 in Gaul. He came from a family with a tradition of military service and entered the ranks at an early age, rising up to command the cavalry under Hydatius. He distinguished himself by playing a major role in one of Hydatius's decisive victories over the Franks. This early success did not endear him to Hydatius, who forced him into an early retirement in order to remove a potential rival for power. During his early years of service, Majorian became close with two other men who would later become partners and rivals in military affairs: Ricimer, a German, and Hydatius, son of an aristocratic family from Gaul. When Hydatius was assassinated in 454, Majorian was swiftly restored to service by Valentinian, who was also assassinated in 455. Rome was then sacked and Petronius Maximus was killed. In the aftermath of this disaster, the Goths seized the opportunity to place a favored candidate on the throne, sponsoring a man named Avitus to take office in Rome. Approvals came from the provinces and many of the foreign peoples on Roman land, and the Senate granted reluctant approval as Avitus came to the city of Rome. His reign was not to last long, though. Ricimer, who was in command of the forces in Italy, was having success with fending off Vandal raids of Italy and the surrounding islands, and decided to seize power. He could not do so directly. As a German, he could not reasonably occupy the Roman throne. But he could promote the candidacy of his friend and ally, Majorian, which he did in late 456. Marching on Rome with an army, he forced Avitus into exile. Meanwhile, Majorian was commanding the army in the north of Italy. He faced an invasion by a small group of Alemanni in early 457, winning a victory and saving Italy. In the aftermath, he was hailed as emperor by his jubilant troops in Ravenna. The approval of the Senate in Rome, sent courtesy of Ricimer, was soon received. Early in his reign, Majorian faced down a major threat to Italy. Emboldened by their sack of Rome, the Vandals launched another invasion of Italy in 457, landing in the south and hoping for an unopposed raiding mission. Unfortunately for them, Majorian was quick, bringing his army to fight the Vandals in a battle. He chased them all the way back to their ships, slaughtering thousands of them. This victory ensured that the Vandals would not threaten Italy again, at least not by direct invasion. Majorian was a soldier who had climbed the ranks and come to power through merit. He was far more active than either Honorius or Valentinian before him. He wanted to bring Rome back from the brink of its total collapse, and he started with the finances of the imperial government, which were in a bad state. For years, corrupt tax collectors had been extorting the provincials for personal gain without any imperial oversight. Majorian attempted to change this by reinstituting strict regulations for tax collection, which brought more funds into the Roman treasury. Majorian also realized that crippling debts were weighing down the lower classes across the empire, depressing tax revenue and economic activity. He thus issued a proclamation to the empire forgiving all debts. The forgiving of debts was a common measure during the old days of the empire, but it had scarcely happened in living memory in the Roman West. Majorian's move endeared many of the people in the provinces to imperial authority once again. These economic efforts, in all honesty, came too late. There was no saving the collapsing Western Roman economy, not with the Vandals threatening all Mediterranean trade and the devastation of once productive land in the provinces. The complex economy of imperial Rome was in its death throes, and central economic policy was no longer enough to avert this process. Finally, Majorian worked on putting together a coalition of military forces to secure the territories of the Western Empire. In the aftermath of the sack of Rome, much of Gaul and Hispania had been overrun by the Goths and other tribes, leaving only Italy under solid imperial control. In order to restore imperial authority, Majorian needed to subjugate the barbarian peoples and make them subordinate to Rome once again. Recruiting efforts among Roman subjects in Italy had been dead ends for decades, and so Majorian turned to foreign peoples to fill the ranks of his legions. Through strenuous recruiting efforts, Majorian attracted thousands of soldiers from the Danube region and assembled a multinational army. In mid-458, he led this army over the Alps into Gaul. Near the city of Arles, Majorian's army met the Gothic army of Theodoric. Since 455, the Goths had conquered much of Hispania and were becoming scary powerful. Majorian, however, defeated the Goths, forcing them back to Aquitaine and making them Roman vassals again. This gave Rome nominal control over much of Hispania once again, and also gave them a potential springboard for an invasion of Vandal North Africa. Majorian next marched against the Burgundians, who had also expanded their territory in the years of chaos, forcing them out of their original region of settlement into central Gaul. Rome now controlled much of Gaul again, although the Franks and Alemanni were still occupying regions beyond the Rhine. As both the Alemanni and Franks were generally friendly to the Romans and helped oversee the defense of Rome's northern frontier, Majorian left them in peace to embark upon his ultimate project. In order to mount an effective attempt at the restoration of imperial power, Rome needed Africa. It was a rich province and provided much of Italy's food supply, but the main problem was the Vandal kingdom that was holding court in Carthage and sponsoring piracy across the Mediterranean. While the Vandal fleets sailed, commerce and trade would be eternally under threat, and the Roman economy would never be able to recover. The Vandals thus became Majorian's next target. Using the funds raised by his economic reforms, Majorian commissioned the construction of a massive war fleet in the port of Carthago Nova in Hispania. Once it was completed, this fleet would sail with Majorian and land a massive army in Africa. Gaiseric, the Vandal king, knew that if a land army made it to Africa, the Vandals would be in trouble. This Roman fleet was gigantic, dwarfing the small raiding squadrons of the Vandals. If it were allowed to sail, the Vandal kingdom would become nothing more than a footnote in history. So he negotiated with Majorian. Throughout 460, Gaiseric sent several offers to try and forestall the invasion. Majorian would not listen to anything. So, Gaiseric gambled. Past midnight in the port of Carthago Nova, the Roman fleet, nearly complete, sits at anchor in the harbor, preparing to sail for Africa. Silently, foreign ships slip into the harbor, lining up next to the Roman ships. Vandals pour onto the docks, bearing blazing torches. Within the hour, the entire Roman fleet is burning. The Romans try to save the ships, but to no avail. The Vandals sail away. Majorian had little time to mourn the loss of his fleet. Ricimer, once his faithful lieutenant, had grown seditious after realizing he could not exercise his own power with such an active emperor on the throne. He needed a puppet, someone he could truly manipulate, and Majorian simply would not work. In 461, Ricimer met Majorian in northern Italy with a military detachment. Majorian suspected nothing, but perhaps he should have. Ricimer had Majorian arrested, stripped of his imperial titles, and brutally beaten. After 5 days of torture, Majorian was finally executed. He was only about 40 years old and had ruled Rome for just 4 years. Majorian was truly the last hope for the Western Roman Empire. His youth, his enthusiasm for administration, and his military skill gave imperial administration a new life, at least for a brief period. After him, the end truly was near, and Rome was destined to fall, not with a bang, but with a whimper.